Hello friends, welcome to Dungeons & Dragonfly, where I adapt various characters for use in D&D. I am the Dragonfly, Dragonfly9078, and today's build is the final member of Konosuba's main cast, Darkness. So first a bit of background. Dustiness Ford Lalatina is the only daughter of the prestigious Dustiness noble house, which has earned the nickname the Shield of the Kingdom for producing powerful knights that defend the realm. Seeking to live up to that reputation, Lalatina adopts the name Darkness and makes her way to the town of Axel with her friend Chris, where she meets Cosma, Aqua, and Megami. As a crusader, Darkness is an exemplary knight who specializes in drawing the enemy's attention and only desires to protect the weak and helpless. Is what I'd like to say, but the reality is a little different. Darkness does excel at drawing attention and defending her teammates, but that specialty is driven by her intense masochism. She actively throws herself into situations where she will be injured, tied up, humiliated, or abused. To make matters worse, despite being able to split solid rock with her sword, Darkness suffers from incredibly poor accuracy, making her almost completely unable to actually land blows during combat. So what do we want from this build? Well, Darkness is the tank of the party, so we're going to need to be able to take a hit from the heaviest of hitters, up to and including Megumin's explosions. Second, we need to not hit with our own attacks. That's right, I said not hit. There aren't a lot of mechanics that I found that decrease your accuracy, but I did my best. Finally, we'll need Darkness's, let's say, forceful personality. With those in mind, let's take a look at stats using the standard point array from the player's handbook. If you're rolling for stats, just make sure that Dexterity and Charisma are 13 for multiclassing. Strength is going to be our dump stat. Darkness is very physically strong, but in 5th edition having a high strength automatically gives higher accuracy, so we need it to be low. Dexterity is 12. We don't need it for much beyond our multiclassing requirement, but there is some merit to a tank having a positive initiative modifier. Constitution is going to be 15. Darkness's best aspect, in her own words, is her sturdy body. Next, we'll make Intelligence 14. She is smart when she's calm, but her utter lack of self-control means I'm going to make her Wisdom 10. And finally, Charisma is going to be 13, mostly because we need it for multiclassing. Darkness is a human, but we need every accuracy decreasing rule we can scrape together for this build, so we're actually going to go with Halfling, specifically Stout Halfling. As a Stout Halfling, she gets +2 to her Dexterity and +1 to her Constitution. She's also Brave, meaning that she has advantage on saves against being frightened, Lucky, meaning she can reroll any ones she rolls on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws, though she does have to use the second roll, has Halfling Nimbleness to let her move through the space of any creature larger than her, and Stout Resilience, giving her advantage on saves against poison and resistance to poison damage. Most importantly, as a Halfling, she counts as small rather than medium. Darkness is also a Noble, giving her proficiency in History and Persuasion, but she's not great at getting people to do what she wants, so I'm actually going to say swap out Persuasion for Religion. After all, Darkness is such a devout follower of Eris that... Darkness's class in Konosuba is Crusader, which sounds like she should be a Paladin, but she doesn't really show any holy abilities during the series, so we're actually going to go with 16 levels of Fighter instead. Fighters get Second Wind, letting them regain 1d10 plus their fighter level HP once per short rest as a bonus action. She also gets a fighting style. Protection, from the player's handbook, is a good option for the tank role, but it does require the user to be using a shield, which Darkness never does. I went with an Unearthed Arcana option called Interception instead. When a creature she can see hits a creature within 5 feet of her with an attack, she can reduce that damage by 1d10 plus her fighter level as a reaction if she's using either a shield or a martial weapon. I believe you can use this if the target that's being hit is you, since you are, in fact, usually within 5 feet of yourself. For some reason, Darkness's lack of accuracy doesn't seem to apply when it comes to blocking attacks with her sword, just when it comes to hitting enemies with it. For her fighter skills, take Athletics and Intimidation. Darkness is very physically fit, and also very scary when she tries to be. Or when she doesn't try to be. She has some serious issues. Fighters also get Action Surge, which lets them take an additional action on their turn once per short rest, and Indomitable, which lets them reroll a failed saving throw. As a 16th level fighter, Darkness can use Indomitable twice per long rest. Darkness can't hit a thing with her sword, but that doesn't stop her from trying. Luckily, fighters get extra attacks. Since she's a 16th level fighter, Darkness can make a total of 3 attacks when she takes the attack action. You know what else fighters get? Lots of ability score improvements. Most of these are going toward feats to make Darkness tougher, starting off, of course, with Tough. which gives Darkness an extra 2 HP per level for a total of 40 extra HP at level 20. Next up is Durable, which gives +1 to her Constitution and says that the minimum HP recovered from rolling hit dice during a short rest equals twice her Constitution modifier, which, spoiler alert, will be capped by the end of the build. Third on the list is Brawny. This will add +1 to her Strength, luckily still leaving a negative modifier, and will also let her add double her proficiency bonus to her Athletics checks, which will offset her low Strength score. It also makes her count as one size larger for determining her carrying capacity. Finally, we'll take the Great Weapon Master feat, which says she can make an attack with a melee weapon as a bonus action after she scores a critical hit or reduces a target's 0 HP with a melee weapon attack. That's almost never going to happen though because of the second half of the feat, which says she can take a -5 to hit with a heavy weapon she's proficient with for +10 to the damage. That -5 combined with her -1 from Strength and the +6 of her proficiency as a 20th level character evens out to a nice round +0 to hit. On top of that, the attack requires a heavy weapon, and as a small character, Darkness automatically has disadvantage on attacks with heavy weapons. I'd say her sword counts as a great sword, so all of her attacks are going to be at disadvantage and have +0 to hit. With her final 2 ability score improvements, we're going to cap off her Constitution for a bit more health, and round off her Charisma to 14. For our martial archetype, Champion could work for Darkness, but it makes it easier to land critical hits, so I decided to go with Brute instead. She gets Brute Force, adding 1d8 damage to any of her weapon attacks that actually hit, as well as Devastating Critical, adding her fighter level to her damage if she does crit. She also has Brutish Durability, adding 1d6 to all of her saving throws. If the save in question was a death save and the d6 takes it over a 20, she's treated as rolling a 20 on the die, keeping her in the fight much longer than she might otherwise. Finally, she gets an additional fighting style. I'd say go for Defense for a nice little +1 to AC while wearing armor. Speaking of armor, you might have noticed that Darkness doesn't have the minimum strength requirement for plate armor. That is unfortunate, but luckily we can get around it by wearing Mithril armor. Mithril armor can be any kind of medium or heavy armor other than hide armor, and eliminates both the strength requirement for the armor and its disadvantage to stealth. Like Megumin and Cosma, Darkness is partied up with a literal goddess, so we're going to jump over to Divine Soul Sorcerer for a level. Favored by the Gods lets her add 2d4 to a missed attack or failed saving throw once per short rest, and she also gets a spell from her Divine Soul, which will be protection from evil and good. We're going to round off this build with a couple levels of Bard. Multiclassing into Bard gives us any one skill. I would go with Perception so you can see the monsters coming. We get 2 uses of Bardic Inspiration per day, which are d6s you can give to an allied creature within 60 feet of you as a bonus action, that they can roll to increase one attack roll, ability check, or saving throw that they make in the next 10 minutes. Second level Bards get Jack of all Trades, which adds half their proficiency bonus to any ability check they make that does not already use their proficiency bonus. This does include initiative, so you can be the first to charge into battle, whatever the reason. We also get Song of Rest, letting you perform during short rest to increase the party's healing by an additional d6, which should pair pretty nicely with the durable feat from earlier. At third level, Bards get Expertise, doubling their proficiency bonus in 2 skills. I would go with Perception and Religion. And finally, we get a Bard College, which is to say, we get the reason I dipped into Bard in the first place. Take College of Eloquence, giving Darkness a Silver Tongue, meaning that she can't roll lower than a 10 on Deception and Persuasion checks. More importantly, she gets Unsettling Words. As a bonus action, Darkness can choose a creature within 60 feet and expend one of her Bardic Inspiration dice, subtracting that die from the next saving throw that creature makes before the start of her next turn. Looking over at spellcasting, Darkness does have a couple of spellcaster levels, but spells are still not a huge part of her arsenal. Looking at Sorcerer cantrips, I've given her Blade Ward to increase her tanking skills, Booming Blade for another damage option that still won't hit, because it also requires a melee attack, Mending to fix the damage her clothes always seem to go through, and Guidance from the Cleric list for a bit of team support. For her first level spells, in addition to protection from evil and good from earlier, she gets Absorb Elements, again to increase her tanking, as well as Id Insinuation, which lasts for 1 minute with concentration, and forces a creature she can see within 60 feet to make a Wisdom save or be incapacitated. At the end of each of its turns, that creature takes 1d12 psychic damage, and can then make another Wisdom saving throw to end the effect. For Bard spells, Vicious Mockery will deal more psychic damage based on your lurid fantasies, and Light lets you see in the dark. For first level spell, take Bane, Cause Fear, and Dissonant Whispers, which seem in theme for your ramblings, and Earth Tremor to knock creatures that fail a dex save prone. It also creates difficult terrain, perfect for being dragged over if you absolutely have to scratch that itch. For second level spells, there's Knock to bust open locks and Enthrall. When she gets going, Darkness is like a train crash, impossible to look away from. Now that it's complete, how viable is this build? Well, she is super durable. 19 AC, somewhere around 250 HP, plus 1d6 to all of her saves, easier death saves, 2 uses of Indomitable, favored by the gods, reaction-based damage reduction, and very robust hit dice-based recovery over short rests means she can go for days and days. Megumine's explosion does a maximum of 245 damage without outside help, and Darkness tanks that without even making her save. She also has access to psychic damage through a few of her spells, which is not a commonly resisted damage type. And between Brute Force and Great Weapon Master, if she does crit, she's dealing 4d6 plus 2d8 plus 9 damage. That said, she can't hit the broadside of a barn. Plus 0 to hit and disadvantage on her melee attacks means she'll keep enemies cool as she fans them with her sword. And with disadvantage, she has to roll 20 on both dice to actually land a crit. She also has extremely limited spell selection since she's effectively a 4th level caster. Her most reliable attack is actually Vicious Mockery, which only does 4d4 damage. But then that was always Darkness's most reliable tactic. Spout some creepy nonsense, unnerve the Dullahan, and let Megumine do what she does best. I hope you enjoyed the build. If you have any feedback or suggestions of characters to build, please leave them in the comments below. I do have a backlog of characters to get through, but I don't have a specific order to them, so if I get an interesting suggestion, there's no reason I couldn't do it sooner. Next week is our very first non-Konosuba build, and I don't know, seems kinda sus to me. Thank you for watching, friends. I will see you all later.